Okay, in this video we're going to set up the Garmin GPS 73 for the purposes of mark laying on a sailboat course. I've pretty much just bought this GPS and we're going to set up a few important settings on this GPS so that it works for the purposes of mark laying. We need to be able to set the distance and speed to nautical mile, knots and meters. Let's set the time zone to automatic. We need to set the position format to degrees decimal minutes. We need to set the map datum to WGS84. And very importantly, we need to set the north reference to magnetic. They're really the only things we need to set up. Sounds difficult, but it's not too bad. And once you've got it set up, you really don't need to change it again. You just need to be able to know how to change or how to check that the GPS is set up correctly. So let's turn this GPS on. It'll start up. I'm sitting inside a house, so it may not find a GPS, but that's okay. The first thing we need to do is we need to scroll down and find the setup menu. So we can scroll using the pad and we can select the setup menu from that system. First of all, I'm going to set the units, the distance and speed units, to nautical miles, knots and meters. So let's go and find the units page. I'll select that. Distance and speed out of the box is set to metric, so I need to select metric and change it to nautical mile, knots and meters. That's a good setting for that. The other settings on this page don't really matter. If I go back out of that units page, let's go across to the time setup option. The time format is set to 12 hours and the time zone is already set to automatic, so we can leave that as it is. Let's find the position format. We'll go and select that. It is degrees decimal minutes already out of the box. So let's make sure we select degrees decimal minutes. The map datum needs to be set to WGS84. That's already set, and so we're good on the position format menu. If I press the back button, I'll get back to the setup menu. Let's go across to heading. Oftentimes these GPSs, as this one is set with a north reference of true. We need to scroll down, select the north reference and change that to magnetic. That's critical for the purposes of mark laying because the race officer will always give the course bearing in magnetic degrees. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to profiles. Now, oftentimes, because we're in sailing clubs, when people turn these things on, they choose sailboat as the default profile, or sailing as the default profile. We're actually on a mark boat, which is a power boat, and so changing this to power boat actually changes a few of the screens to be more relevant to what we want to do. Okay, that's it for setting up the GPS. Let's go home by holding this button here with the home written on the screen. I'm going to go across to the instruments page. The instruments page is the main page we'll be looking at. We need to set this up so that it displays the bearing and the distance to our waypoint. So let's press select on the instruments page, and we can see out of the box it's got three large numbers, which is good, but they're displaying course, speed and trip odometer. Now we don't really, that information is not relevant to us, so I'm going to change these numbers to the top number will display the bearing to our waypoint, the middle number will display the distance to our waypoint, and I'm going to use the bottom number here to display time of day. Oftentimes it's useful when there's a start sequence that we can see when the 0 second is coming up of a sequence, and that's useful. So to change the instruments page to display bearing and distance, we press menu once on this page and we scroll down to change the data fields and we select we can see that the top number is highlighted, and we want to press select on that and change that top number to bearing. So I've just gone up, all the options are alphabetical. It was on course, so I've scrolled up to get bearing. Now that'll show the bearing to our waypoint in magnetic. If I go down and highlight this middle number and press select, I'm going to change that. We need to set that to distance. As I said, these are all alphabetic, so we need this to display distance to next. And we'll press enter on that. And then the bottom number, you can play around with some options on here. I like to display the time of day, so that I actually know, I can see in big numbers what the time of day is. If I press back out of that, now you can see that I've got bearing, distance to next, and time of day displayed on my GPS, and that's really all the information I need to know to lay a mark. In the next video, we'll go through how to lay a waypoint and how to go to that waypoint so that this screen is always showing you the bearing and the distance to that waypoint.